This is sort of an aside. I plotted the change of carbon dioxide at Mauna Loa over the last 50 years. And I plotted the concentration as a percent of the atmosphere from 0 to 1%. Okay, this is only 1%. This is how much CO2 has increased in the last 50 years. Looks very different from what you're used to seeing, because they usually make the scale, you know, that small so that you can see the increase in CO2, which I think is misleading. It takes 5 years for humanity to add 1 molecule of CO2 to 100,000 molecules of atmosphere. Now, because the climate modelers believe that feedbacks are positive, they tend to build their climate models. See, the climate models have many adjustments you can make, many adjustments. And what you decide is realistic depends on what how you think the climate system works. Okay? So the climate models are generally going to produce what the model developers want to see come out the other end. Especially when it comes to clouds. Yes, there is real physics in these models. There's some very good real physics. But the cloud physics in these models is very poor. And that's all it takes, is for the clouds to be wrong and the global warming predictions would be meaningless. That's all it takes, is one thing like clouds to be wrong. And this is would just be meaningless. I think it's entirely possible that most of what we see in terms of climate variability, or at least a good piece of it, a big part, some substantial percentage, is just natural cloud variations associated with chaotic changes in the system. Probably more originating from the ocean. The atmosphere tends to follow the ocean. But if there's a change in weather patterns, the atmosphere can change the clouds by just a little bit. And once you've changed global cloudiness, even by a little bit, you have caused either global warming or global cooling. So I think there are good reasons to be skeptical of the idea that global warming is man-made. But very few people are looking into the various possibilities. And there are many reasons for that. And that would take a whole other lecture to discuss why no one is working on natural causes of climate change. So that's the end of my talk, and I would like to answer questions. Thank you for listening.
After the 2001 September World Trade Center problems, United States stopped all the airplanes for 3 days. And they found out that the temperature went up a little bit, almost 1 degree. Do you know that?
Well, I think the temperature maybe went down because the cirrus clouds went away. Those high-altitude cirrus clouds, they have a bigger warming effect than cooling effect. But yes, that paper was published. There has been a more recent paper in the last year or so that showed that statistically what they found was not meaningful, was not statistically meaningful. But it is true that there are some researchers that think jet traffic has caused some of the warming. If you look at jet fuel production, how much jet fuel has been produced year after year after year after year over for the last 50 years, it's just amazing, the increase. And of course, the more jet fuel that's used, the more you get the high altitude cirrus clouds. So it could be that the cirrus clouds from jets is causing some of the warming. It's possible. And there are a couple of papers out there on that subject.
Right. You said that you're not a solar scientist, right. But even so, we have some indication that solar activity has during the past, at least, influenced climate? We have the modern minimum, we have the upper minimum, and so on.
Mhm.
So how would you explain the climate variations that are connected, at least seemingly, to solar activity?
Well,
without
like-
solar activity?
Well, like I said, I'm no expert.
Yeah.
Supposedly, solar physicists know how much energy is being given off by the sun in the past. I personally don't believe it. I find it hard to believe.
It's 1 per mil.
Huh?
It's 1 per mil.
1 per
The
mil.
variation between maximum solar activity and minimum solar activity.
Right, but then how much energy was the sun giving off 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago? Do we really know? I don't know. So uncertainty there. But even if solar output hasn't changed in terms of total solar irradiance, there are other things that might be going on, like the cosmic ray thing, modulating cosmic rays, which then might change cloud cover. But notice it goes back to cloud cover. It's a natural mechanism for changing cloud cover, and maybe it's the sun and cosmic rays that are part of the story too. Just one more possible natural explanation, right, that the IPCC will not work on. And if you do work on it, the IPCC thinks you're nuts.
Magnus Augustin, you don't have to answer this one, but I'm curious, how come you have not been sacked? Because one real scientist in climate science after the others is having a very hard time and ending up in the street, like Henrik James and many others. But there are a few, Bob Carter, you, Christy, and so on, who keep going on.
Yeah, well, it's been difficult to stay in business. Some portion of our funding that has kept my salary going, some portion of it, has come from what we call pork from our Congress. But a lot of universities get some extra money from Congress in the United States. For the most part, I hear very little from the IPCC scientists. And when I engage them in email, after 2 or 3 emails, they say they don't want to talk about it anymore. So I mostly just get silence. I'm told that that is probably a good thing, is they don't know how to answer my results, so they just don't say anything. They just ignore me. Whether I'll still be around in 5 years, I don't know.
I wonder if you have any explanation for this massive propaganda victory for the other side. I mean, media, politicians, everybody goes for that only one picture.
Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it's clear that there are many different reasons. Money in the United States, you only get money, research money from Congress to study a problem. A problem has to exist. Man-made global warming would be a big problem. If there isn't man-made global warming, then we may not get the funding. Now, I'm not saying that people are lying in order to get money. I'm just saying it's a bias. It presents a bias in your mind on the part of scientists. Also, now this is true of scientists and of the media, everybody wants to save the earth.